Hey guys, Eric and Roth here to talk about the Game of Thrones Season 4 finale, The Children. We're about to delve into full spoilers for the episode, so that's your warning. Huge episode, lot to cover.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, Tyrion Lannister.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a great finale. What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. I did. I mean, they packed so much into this finale. It's insane. We knew a lot of this was coming, and man, they made it work, because a lot of times when we skip from place to place to place, that can make the episode for me feel a little kinetic.
Yeah.
I sometimes like the more focused ones, but I thought they did a really good job of balancing all of the elements, throwing everything and their mother at us.
Yeah.
Except for one big thing.
Right. But yeah, that's it. If you read the books, yeah, that was interesting. But for those who was just watching as a show, I thought it really did deliver huge on a lot of things. Let's go through the characters. Jon Snow, because obviously last week was all Jon Snow.
Yeah.
We did get the wrap-up of that, and a lot. I mean, Mance Rayder, we hadn't seen that guy in a couple years.
I know.
And then Stannis showing up. What did you think of how that all came together? A lot of different characters coming together there.
I know. I thought it was really great, because the people that I was with, they hadn't read the books,
Right.
and they had that moment of going, "Who the hell is this army? Like, who
My
are
wife
these people?"
did too,
yeah,
yeah.
like who? And I reminded them, well, remember, Melisandre told Stannis to go to the wall.
Yep.
And I thought it was really well played. I liked the subtle changes that they made in terms of the interactions and sort of who met who and when and where and why, because I think that it put us in a really good position to understand where Mance was coming from,
Right.
you know? And yet you understand where Stannis is coming from too, because if 100,000 wildlings go across the wall, I mean, that's not going to be cozy and peaceful for anyone.
Yeah, and also in the midst of this, even though I don't think she even spoke in the episode, Melisandre staring at Jon Snow was kind of an interesting beat.
Wasn't that wonderfully creepy?
Because Melisandre, as we know, is a person with a lot of plans for a lot of people. So it definitely seemed like there was something about Jon Snow where she's like, yeah.
That there was a double, like probably triple purpose for her wanting to arrive there, and Jon Snow is certainly on her radar at this point, which nobody really wants to be on her radar.
No,
frankly.
yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was really well conceived and really well executed. Great moment.
Another one of the remaining Stark siblings, Bran, who we hadn't seen since the middle of the season, we came back to here, and he introduced us to kind of a whole other supernatural aspect to the show with the children, which obviously has a double meaning, but specifically,
Yeah.
the children, we met this sort of strange fairy-like creature.
Yeah, and I think that was what was really cool about this episode for me, because I like fantasy. I'm a fantasy fan. Is that they're just like not pulling any punches anymore. Now, obviously, a lot of fantasy elements have been introduced. We've seen dragons, giants, you know, but this was the one where it felt like we're not holding back at all. Like the fantasy element is going to be covered everywhere, and this is probably the most fantastical element, Bran's storyline, which for me is very cool and very exciting, because they held back on that for a while with him.
Yeah.
It was a very slow burn to get him to this point.
I don't know if I loved, in the episode that I loved, I don't know if I loved the actual depiction of that one children character we met. It was like, so it was an actual kid with a little bit of makeup, but I felt like they might have done some overdubbing on the actual kid. I don't know, it was a little off to me. But I am very intrigued. I know Bran can be a difficult character for some people. He's not on screen a lot, and so sometimes you're kind of like, what's going on here? But I am, Bran, it always seems like, great things are going to happen, that he will turn out to be a very key important player.
And I think that's a really tough thing to pull off, to your point,
Right.
because it's like we cut back to Bran and it's like, Bran, you're important. And we go and do other stuff. And then we're like, Bran, you're important. But why? We don't know why. And it's sort of, it can be a frustrating thing, I think, for audiences. But I thought this was a great moment because he's more and more been able to display aspects of his power, you know? Certainly
much
with
more confident now when he takes over Hodor. He just does it.
He just does it. And it's like Hodor POV, it's wonderful. But another thing, just as a side note, that I thought they pulled off really well with the special effects was the skeletons.
Yeah.
It's a really tough thing. That can often look very hokey. But I thought it really worked.
It was a cool sequence. It was it had some nice sort of scariness to it with them coming out of the hands coming out of the ground, and then poor Jojen, didn't make it. And who, I thought was a good, even though we didn't get a lot of time with him, I thought the actor did a good job. That
He did.
It felt the weight of him being lost. Now, meanwhile, Dany, this is interesting. Game of Thrones, obviously, everyone talks about Game of Thrones and how, oh man, every time you think something good's going to happen, something terrible happens, and good guys die and whatnot. So the Dany storyline is interesting because, the dragons, we all love the dragons, Dany and the dragons, and we're waiting for her to come to Westeros with her dragons and just kick some butt, get rid of some Lannisters. And then this episode is like, guess what? You can't tame dragons.
Yeah.
And they might, kill some innocent children along the way.
Yeah. I think that what's really working for me, it's interesting because I feel like there's been such a backlash against Dany. Mm-hmm. And there's always been people that loved her and people that didn't. I love her personally.
Yeah.
I like that character a lot. And I think one of the things that's cool about the journey that she's on right now is it's really forcing her to face the challenges of leadership, because in a traditional story, happy ever would be, oh, I freed the slaves and now everything's going to be groovy, right? But they're like, not really. It's complicated. These are people that have had the system going on for thousands of years. You've got to build a new system now. You can't just go in and take over a land and have it work. And I think that's really teaching her something about if she ever did make it back to King's Landing, it would be the same situation. She would have to build in systems. She would have to make it work. And so I think she's learning really valuable lessons. But also, there's a cost to everything, and that includes having dragons.
Yeah.
Nothing comes for free. And I found that moment to be remarkably heartbreaking.
Her chaining them up.
I did, because for me, it was like her children and her pets.
Right,
all at once, both of which I thought was equally heartbreaking for them and for her, because they must feel so betrayed.
Yeah, no, I thought that was it was a touching, sort of sad moment. And I do think Dany's storyline, sometimes, I like the character, but it can sometimes feel a little stagnant because, yes, we kind of want her to get further and closer to Westeros than she's getting. But I did think it was a very Game of Thrones and well-told tale to show that, yeah, nothing's easy. It's not going to just be so simple as jump on your dragons, fly in, and you're cool. Because these dragons are dragons.
Yeah.
And they can't completely be. Even though you can learn to train your dragon partially in Game of Thrones, you can't fully train your dragon.
You got to learn to train your dragon.
Right, yeah, yes. So let's get to, I think, the two biggest storylines this season. Let's start out with Mr. Tyrion Lannister, or I guess the Lannisters in general.
Oh my God.
Because, this was obviously a big episode for the Lannister family that will forever change them and change the show. Tyrion was freed by Jaime, and that's great, and that's actually one of the few, yay moments of, and them having a hug and a nice goodbye. But then Tyrion decides to go pay his dad a visit, and all hell goes.
Oh, man. Big episode for crapping.
Yes,
big episode for the crapper.
Yes.
And it's the lesson I learned is that
poop episode.
It's a poop episode.
Right.
A lesson I learned is you take your life in your hands if you're going to poop.
Yes.
Because both of them, met their ends right after a nice release. At least they had that.
Right.
So, sorry. In any event.
You poop or you die.
You poop or you die.
Right.
So in any event, I thought that there were some subtle differences made in both of those storylines, actually, but I thought with the one with Tyrion, it was to allow us to feel a little more sympathy for him with Shay, which it did. And that was, again, a moment where years of rage just came out, but he was still at his core a moral person, and he did it, but he hated that he did it.
Yeah,
I think both times, and I think that question he asked his father, why do you feel this way, is a really important question, Why have you hated me? Why do you want to see me dead, And
I'll also say I will miss Charles Dance on this show. He's been so great. Because even though he's definitely playing a cold-blooded bastard who treats Tyrion so badly, he also has been shown to be very shrewd and will just sort of do what needs to be done and is not just a psychopath like some of the other villains on this show. Brings that intelligence to it with the parts that you hate. So I will miss having Tywin on the show going forward.
Yeah, I will too. And I mean, God, I loved his dynamic. I was glad we got to see the dynamic with Arya previously.
Yeah.
I think too with Varys, that's a really good sort of question. I love these characters that you're always wondering why they're about what they're about, and sort of Tyrion's another person that in that moment it felt like, okay, you're important and I'm going to shuffle you off, not just because I like you. He doesn't do anything just because he likes you.
Right. Oh, no, he's got a plan the whole time. So let's talk, though. You mentioned Arya because that was obviously, we ended the whole episode in the season with Arya. Great stuff.
We'll skip the incest, but damn.
Yeah. And there was the return of the incest. Triumphant return of the incest? Arya and the Hound crossing paths with Brienne and Podrick. I thought was really crowd pleasing. I mean, just in and of itself, the meeting, but then the fight, obviously.
I mean, can we add this to our best fight list?
Yeah, I think it will. Next time we do a revision, it's going on there.
It was so beautiful because it was so animalistic.
Yeah.
I loved when Brienne just sort of started growling and lost it. Everything in her was determined to win this fight and save this little girl. I also thought it was a great opportunity for Arya to see someone, the one person in the world probably, that she could relate to. And had they met under any other circumstances, this would be her best friend.
The person who is what she wants to be. Yeah. Really embodies, and should be her mentor and someone who she could look up to, but it's just not how things have turned out. Yeah.
No, and can we talk about what an amazing actress Maisie is? Because first and foremost, so that moment, just her simple look to the Hound said more than pages of dialogue have said about who she is and where she's at this point in her life. She's 11.
Yeah.
All right, how old is she?
Well, the actress is 17.
Actress is 17.
Great final scene, though, last scene between her and the Hound. And again, it's a testament to the show that I felt conflicted about it because he killed, the baker's boy. I can't remember, butcher or baker. He killed him years ago.
Butcher.
He did a lot of horrible things, but then we came to really love the dynamic between the two of them. That as we've seen them traveling, a lot of people had become their favorite dynamic on the show. But she's very cold-blooded there, and he deserves it. And yet, also, you feel bad that their partnership and his life is now at an end.
And it's an interesting moment because it's two-sided for her. It's very vengeful, and Arya, as we know, is very vengeful. But it's also sort of like the clarity that Ned Stark had in the sense of well, this sucks, but it's what needs to happen because it's justice. Yeah. So, see ya.
And so she's taking a very different path there at the end, a very specific path, I should say. Obviously, there was so much that happened in this finale. What do you think? Do you think it delivered compared to other finales? What are you most excited to see next season on Game of Thrones? We'll have plenty to speculate, talk about, and learn more about in the long wait till Game of Thrones Season 5, guys. Thanks. Let us know in the comments what you thought.